Testing. Testing.
There we go. Test 1, 2. There we have it. Always something. I know. All right. Hello. Can everybody hear me? All right, great. Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is MP Carver, Festival Director, and I'm very honored to introduce you to our penultimate headline reading of the 2023 Massachusetts Poetry Festival with Mosab Abu Toha. Thanks. In Mosab's reading today will be followed by a conversation led by poet Robbie Gamble. Robbie Gamble received an MFA in poetry from Lesley University. His poems and essays have appeared in the Atlanta Review, Poet Lore, and Salamander, to name a few. His chapbook, A Can of Pinto Beans, was published by Lilly Poetry Review Press in 2022. Robbie was the winner of the 2017 Carve Poetry Prize, and he was a 2019 Robert Taylor Fellow at the Kenyon Summer Writers Workshop. His essay, Exit Wound, was cited as a notable essay in Best American Essays 2020. He is the poetry editor for Solstice, a magazine of diverse voices, and he divides his time between Boston and Vermont. Mosab Abu Toha, a Palestinian poet, was born in Gaza and has spent his life there. A graduate in English language teaching, he taught English at the United Nations Relief and Works Agency schools in Gaza from 2016 until 2019, and he is the founder of the Edward Said Library, Gaza's first English language library, which now has 2 branches. In 2019 to 2020, Abu Toha was a visiting poet in the Department of Comparative Literature at Harvard and a visiting librarian at Harvard's Houghton Library. Abu Toha gave talks and readings at the University of Pennsylvania, Temple University, the University of Arizona, and New York University, among others. In January 2020, he also spoke at the American Library Association's midwinter meeting in Philadelphia. Abu Toha is a columnist for Arrowsmith Press, and his writings from Gaza have appeared in The Nation, Arrowsmith Press, and Literary Hub. His poems have been published in Poetry, The Nation, the New York Review of Books, Solstice, the Academy of American Poets Poem a Day, and Poetry Daily, among others. His debut poetry book, Things You May Find Hidden in My Ear, published by City Lights in 2022, won a Palestine Book Award in London and was named a finalist for the National Book Critics Circle Award in Poetry. Naomi Shihab Nye wrote about his books, Mosab's poems break my heart and awaken it at the same time. I feel I have been waiting all my life for his work. Mosab Abu Toha.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Okay. I would like first to thank the Massachusetts Poetry Festival team for their wonderful work, and also to my friends Richard, Robbie, and Kathy for their hospitality during my stay here in Salem. I'm going to read a few poems from my poetry collection, Things You May Find Hidden in My Ear, and then I'll read a few new poems. The first poem in the collection is called Palestine AZ, and I'll read just a few parts from this poem. Palestine AZ. A. An apple that fell from the table on a dark evening when man-made lightning flashed through the kitchen, the streets, and the sky, rattling the cupboards and breaking the dishes. Am is the linking verb that follows I in the present tense when I am no longer present, when I am shattered. B, a book that doesn't mention my language or my country and has maps of every place except for my birthplace, as if I were an illegitimate child on Mother Earth. Borders are those invented lines, drawn with ash on maps and sewn into the ground by bullets. C. Gaza is a city where tourists gather to take photos next to destroyed buildings or graveyards. A country that exists only in my mind. Its flag has no room to fly freely, but there is space on the coffins of my countrymen. D. Dar means house. My grandparents left their house behind in 1948 near Jaffa Beach. A tree my father told me about stood in the front yard. Dreams of children and their parents of listening to music or watching plays at Al-Mishal Cultural Center. Israel destroyed it in August 2018. I hate August, but the plays are still performed in Gaza. Gaza is the stage. G. How are you, Mosab? I'm good. I hate this word. It has no meaning to me. Your English is good, Mosab. Thanks. When I was asked to fill out a form for my US J1 visa application, my country, Palestine, was not on the list. But lucky for me, my gender was. K. My grandfather kept the key to his house in Jaffa in 1948. He thought they would return in a few days. His name was Hassan. The house was destroyed. Others built a new one in its place. Hassan died in 1986. The key has rusted, but it still exists somewhere, longing for the old wooden door. In Gaza, you don't know what you are guilty of. It feels like living in a Kafka novel. R. I was born in November. My mother told me she was walking on the beach with my father. It turned stormy and began to rain. My mother felt pain, and an hour later, she gave birth to me. I love the rain and the sea, the last two things I heard before I came into this horrible world. S. I like to go to the beach and watch the sun as it sinks into the sea. She's going to shine on nicer places, I tell myself. My son's name is Yazan. He was born in 2015, or a year after the 2014 war. This is how we date things. Once he saw a swarm of clouds. He shouted, "Dad, some bombs, watch out!" He thought the clouds were bomb smoke. Even nature confuses us. Tea. In summer, I drink tea with mint. In winter, I add dried sage. Anyone who visits, even if it's a neighbor knocking at the door to ask about what day or date it is, I offer them tea. Offering tea is like saying marhaba, hi. They once said Palestine will be free tomorrow. When is tomorrow? What is freedom? How long does it last? One last letter from this poem. Why? Yafa is my daughter's name. I put my ears near her mouth when she speaks, and I hear Yafa's sea, waves lapping against the shore. I look into her eyes, and I see my grandparents' footsteps still imprinted on the sand. Thank you. What is home? And this is a line inspired by one question asked in Ghassan Kanafani's Returning to Haifa. He's a very famous short story writer. So in one scene, the wife asks her husband, "What is home? Ma huwa al-watan?" So home here, homeland. So I asked this question to myself. What is home? It is the shade of trees on my way to school before they were uprooted. It is my grandparents' black and white wedding photo before the walls crumbled. It is my uncle's prayer rug where dozens of ants slept on wintry nights before it was looted and put in a museum. It is the oven my mother used to bake bread and roasted chicken before a bomb reduced our house to ashes. It is the cafe where I watched football matches and played. My child stops me. Can a four-letter word hold all of these? On a starless night. On a starless night, I toss and turn. The earth shakes, and I fall out of bed. I look out my window in the morning. The house next door no longer stands. It's lying like an old carpet on the floor of earth, trampled by missiles, fat slippers flying off legless feet. I never knew my neighbors still had that small TV, that the old painting still hung on their walls, that their cat had kittens. This is a poem dedicated to my grandfather, who passed away before my father got married. So whenever I think of Palestine, I think of him, because it's something that I always hear about but never saw. My grandfather, and if you have the book, you will see that the poem has no punctuation marks, and you will know why. My grandfather and home. 1. My grandfather used to count the days for return with his fingers. He then used stones to count. Not enough. He used the clouds, birds, people. Absence turned out to be too long. 36 years until he died. For us now, it is over 70 years. My grandpa lost his memory. He forgot the numbers, the people. He forgot home. 2. I wish I were with you, Grandpa. I would have taught myself to write you poems, volumes of them, and paint our home for you. I would have sewn you from soil a garment decorated with the plants and the trees you had grown. I would have made you perfume from the oranges and soap from the sky's tears of joy. Couldn't think of something purer. 3. I go to the cemetery every day. I look for your grave, but in vain. Are they sure they buried you? Or did you turn into a tree? Or perhaps you flew off with a bird to the nowhere. 4. I place your photo in an earthenware pot. I water it every Monday and Thursday at sunset. On Ramadan, I water it every day for 30 days or less or more. 5. How big do you want our home to be? I can continue to write you poems until you are satisfied. If you wish, I can annex a neighboring planet or two. 6. For this home, I shall not draw boundaries, no punctuation marks. Rubble salary. Why doesn't the warplane heave some rubble overboard after bombing a house to increase the pilot's salary? On the scale, stones and rebars are heavier than souls. In the middle of the book, there are 9 photos that I took in Gaza over different years. And in one photo, there are some children playing in the playground of a school. And for some of you who don't know, during every Israeli attack, schools usually turn into a refugee center because people cannot stay in their houses. So below this photo, I wrote, midterm test. When a drone follows you on your way to school, what is it doing? A, it's keeping an eye on you so you won't get hit by a car. B, it's watching in case you lose your pocket money on the way. C, it's counting your steps to make sure you are getting your daily exercise. Or D, it's covering your head in case an F-16 drops a bomb on you by mistake. Silence of water. Father typing on a keyboard. Mother reading the morning paper aloud to cover the sound of a neighbor's radio. Hanging lamp swinging in the breeze from a cracked window. Flies losing balance sometimes. Black and white pictures on walls searching for colors. Kettle on stove. One big drop hammers the roof. No lightning, thunder, or clouds. It rains only on this house. Dust and concrete stuff the nostrils of other houses. Water on stove no longer boils. Shrapnel has cut its throat. This poem that I'm going to read is a very, very hard poem to read because it's about a family in North Gaza, just a few, maybe 2 kilometers away from where I lived in Gaza. And during the May 2021 Israeli attacks, the family was trying to escape the house, but unfortunately, the house fell on them. So the family was both the parents and their 4 children, and the 4 children were below 10 years old. So the title of the poem is Shrapnel Looking for Laughter. The house has been bombed, everyone dead. The kids, the parents, the toys, the actors on TV, characters in novels, personas in poetry collections, the I, the he, and the she. No pronouns left, not even for kids when they learn parts of a speech next year. Shrapnel flies in the dark, looks for the family's peals of laughter, hiding behind piles of disfigured walls and bleeding picture frames. The radio no longer speaks. Its batteries have burned. The antenna is broken. Even the broadcaster, hearing the bomb as it fell, was hit. Even we, hearing the bomb as it fell, threw ourselves to the ground, each of us counting the others around them. We were safe, but our hearts still ache. Seven fingers. And here I'm thinking of the 7 dwarfs. 7 fingers. Whenever she meets new people, she sinks her small hands in her pocket, in the pockets of her jeans, moves them as if she's counting some coins. She's just lost 7 fingers in the war. Then she moves away, back hunched, tiny as a dwarf. This is a strange poem called Edward Said, Noam Chomsky, and Theodore Adorno in Gaza. And it's based on a real occasion after a Israeli bombing close to my house. Edward Said, Noam Chomsky, and Theodore Adorno in Gaza. Dust tiptoes in a standing ovation after the explosion. Light hits the icy earth, fades into the town's potholes. Edward Said is out of a place. Again, his books fall from my shelves onto the broken window glass. Palestine is also out of a place. Its map falls off my wall. Edward's exile bleeds again of wars, of continued estrangement. Chomsky innately repairs the wounded words, applying bandages from his universal grammar kit. Adorno tries to study the music of the falling bomb and shattering glass, but the words slipping from the books mystify his sight and mind. The dust covers his glasses. The musical score lies breathless near his shivering feet. There is a long poem which is about me getting wounded during the Israeli aggression against Gaza between December 27, 2008, January 18, 2009. So it's about 4 weeks. So I got wounded during that attack, and I was still 16. So it's a long poem, but I'll just read a few parts from it. A Saturday, first day of the week in Gaza, age 16, and after the first finals, I finished my Arabic exam, I liked Arabic as much as I liked English and soccer. I discussed my answers with my father. Home by noon, we stood on the roof of our house, watched the pigeons my father raised as a hobby. The limitless ceiling above us was part blue, part white. Ships of clouds sailing slowly in windless sky. A series of explosions shook the house, the neighborhood, shook the earth. Words fell from my mouth, broke on my stiff, bare feet. Birds from nowhere flew aimlessly in the open sky. Some hid in trees. The pigeons in their big coop trembled. Rock pigeons, Egyptian pigeons, king pigeons, and Halabi pigeons. A tiny egg fell. My answers must have fallen off the pages of my exam, maybe melting from fear. I saw black smoke rise from a building a few kilometers away, blacker than the ink on my exam sheets. We didn't hear the F-16s until they finished their airstrikes. They descended from the inferno. Dante hadn't mentioned them. About 80 F-16 aircraft with their bombs struck Gaza in unison, like a big drum roll announcing someone's death. But it was more than one death, I thought it had to be. We heard to the radio that old dirty box that usually vomits blood and body parts into our ears, hospitals full of burning wounds, moans, a corpse, and a girl missing her leg lying on a cot or a bloody floor. Over 200 policemen killed and 700 wounded in that dark hour. They had been training in police training facilities, and 2 million other people worried for their lives. Do not think of us as numbers. Then I'll skip a little bit to talk about my brother, who was born deaf and mute. My brother, he passed away in 2016, and this was in 2009. My brother Hudayfa was born deaf and mute. He never grew up well, either physically or mentally. But emotionally, he was fine. We didn't know that. He was watching TV with us when videos and photos of deformed bodies and limbless people appeared on the TV screen. 2 days later, Hudayfa was hit inside in a place we couldn't see. We gave him a glass of water. He poured it on the floor. He broke dishes, snatched the TV cord, bit his clothes. We cried for him. We prayed for him. Days later, he came back to us. Then skipping to talk about the moment I was wounded. Barely 16, I'm on my way to the grocery shop to buy some damn eggs. I love boiled eggs. I see a large crowd of people gathering at the crossroad. I get curious. I walk toward them. Being small, I cannot see through the crowd. A yellow light hits. My head's split half open. I feel this somehow. The light might help me see more clearly, I tell myself. Blood drips onto my eyelashes and hoodie. In the brief moments standing there, I'm asking myself, how come you can stand while your head is slashed open? Everyone around me has collapsed to the ground, fallen like beads of sweat. I still stand. This picture freezes the picture freezes before me. The smell of gunpowder crawls into my lungs. Like a madman, I begin to run around. Someone gives me a tissue to wipe the blood on my left cheek and forehead. I need much more than that. It's not only my cheeks and forehead. The shrapnel has also blown holes in my neck and shoulder. I am no longer wearing my slippers. The 5 shekels have disappeared. I look around. People are rushing toward us. A vehicle approaches. Ambulance, it says. But there is no paramedic, first aid, no bed to lie on. Come on, it's my first time being wounded. I get inside. Someone throws a corpse in next to me. The body burnt, maybe no head. I don't look at it. The smell is so bad. I'm so sorry, whoever you are. It's the smell of death. I open the window for the fresh air. The ambulance driver doesn't ask me who I am or how I am. At a Shifa hospital, people in and out. I walk into the emergency room. No one looks at me. I sit on the ground next to other wounded people. Some lie on the floor like burnt matches. A nurse who checks on me sees the hole in my neck and the wounds on my face. She starts to touch my abdomen and back to see if there is any wound I cannot feel. An elevator carries my gurney upstairs to the radiology room. A doctor tends to my wounds. Someone is looking after me. An hour passes. My father and brother walk in. My brother points at the hole in my neck. Your index finger can fit in that hole. It's centimeters from your windpipe. If, when the rocket fell, I had moved my head a bit to watch a bird on a tree or to count the clouds coming from the west side, the shrapnel might have cut through my throat. I wouldn't be married to my wife, father of 3 kids, one born in America. My brother tells me, hearing the explosions and knowing you hadn't returned home yet, we assumed you were dead. We began searching for you in the morgue. I look around me. Relatives circle my bed. I watch them as they chat. I imagine them praying round my coffin. Thank you. I have a poem called Notebooks, which has small parts. I'll just read 3 parts from this poem. They are very short. Why is it when I dream of Palestine, I see it in black and white? The grave was brimming with sand and the prayers and the stories that fell from visitors passing by. It's been noisy for a long time, and I've been looking for a recording of silence to play on my old headphones. I'll read 2 more poems and then move to read some new ones. The one I'm going to read is the title poem of my collection, and it's things you may find hidden in my ear. So one very quick story. I had a surgery on my right ear in Boston in 2020 during the pandemic. So after the surgery, I wrote my doctor a poem, hoping that she would like it. And she said, "Oh, you are a gifted poet." I said, "Thank you." And then I felt encouraged to complete the poem with part 2, so you will have this story in mind. So I thank you to my doctor. So, things you may find hidden in my ear, for Alicia M. Quesnell, MD. 1. When you open my ear, touch it gently. My mother's voice lingers somewhere inside. Her voice is the echo that helps me recover equilibrium when I feel dizzy during my attentiveness. You may encounter songs in Arabic, poems in English I recite to myself, or a song I chant to the chirping birds in our backyard. When you stitch the cut, don't forget to put all these back in my ear. Put them back in order, as you would do with the books on your shelf. 2. The drone's buzzing sound, the roar of an F-16, the screams of bombs falling on houses, on fields, and on bodies, of rockets flying away, rid my tiny ear canal of them all. Spray the perfume of your smiles on the incision. Inject the song of life into my veins to wake me up. Gently beat the drum so my mind may dance with yours, my doctor, day and night. Thank you. The last poem from the collection I would like to read. So again, one very quick thing about Gaza. In Palestine, unfortunately, we don't have an airport, so if you want to leave Gaza to any other country, you have to go to a neighboring country. So in this case, Egypt or Jordan, both of which are not very easy to reach. So I've been going through a lot of difficulties traveling outside Gaza. So I wrote this poem, Forever Homeless. Before my long travel, I pack my suitcases, stuff them with some sand from our land, some scent from my mother's kitchen, and some sounds of birds in the morning. And in my pockets, I put the 4 directions. My hands are the compass. At the airport, I beg the officer not to open the suitcases, and if needed, to touch my clothes gently. Otherwise, I would be standing on nothing, surrounded by nothing, see nothing. I would be weightless and forever homeless. Thank you. Okay. I'll read just a few poems from new poems, just very quickly. These are 3 short poems that I wrote in April. Sunrise in Palestine. Fighters smuggle the sun through tunnels beneath the houses. The smoke of bombs dropped from the F-16s has covered the city's sky. Ironing board. A car slides on our cobblestone street like an iron running on an ironing board. But in my city, streets are never flat. Potholes are everywhere, like nests in a forest of noise. History class in Palestine. At my first history class, the only students attending are the future, the present, and the past. As I step in, the future gets ready to leave, while the past straddles the present, handcuffing it, severing its hamstrings, and dyeing its clothes gray. I told Richard about this one, about our dreams as children. So this poem, My Dreams as a Child. I still have dreams about a room filled with toys my mother always promised we could have if we were rich. I still have dreams about seeing the refugee camp from a window on a plane. I still have dreams about seeing the animals I learned about in 3rd grade: elephant, giraffe, kangaroo, and wolf. I still have dreams about running for miles and miles with no border blocking my feet, with no unexploded bombs scaring me off. I still have dreams about watching my favorite team, Barcelona, playing soccer on the beach, me standing and waiting for the ball to come my way and run away with it. I still have dreams. I still have dreams about my grandfather, how much I want to pick oranges with him in Jaffa. But my grandfather died. Jaffa is occupied, and the oranges no longer grow on his weeping groves. No art. So, one art by Elizabeth Bishop, and here no art. No art. The art of losing isn't hard to master. Elizabeth Bishop. You know everything will come to an end. The sugar, the tea, the dried sage, the water. Just go to the market and restock. Even your shadow will abandon you when there is no light. So just keep things that require only you. The book of poems that only you can decipher. The blank map of a country whose cities and villages only you can recognize. I personally lost 3 friends, a city to darkness, and a language to fear. This was not easy to survive, but survival proved necessary to master. But of all things, losing the only photo of my grandfather when he was young was a real disaster. Thank you. Okay, very quickly here. So this poem was written after Yusuf Kamanyaka. Thanks. So again, thank you to the Mass Poetry Festival and all my friends. But here I would like to extend more thanks here. Thanks. after Yusuf Kamanyaka. Thanks to my mother, always, but especially when she called for me to join them at the table just seconds before shrapnel cut through the window glass where I stood to watch distant airstrikes. My mother's voice, the magnet of my life, swayed my head just in time. Plumes of smoke choked the neighborhood. It was night, and when we ran into the street and my mother had left the cake in the oven, we smelled the bomb smoke with the burnt chocolate and strawberry of the cake. And thanks to the huge clock tower, which saved my life. I was crossing the street and my head, glued to my phone, never heeded the honk of cars or the wheels of vans screeching on the rough tarmac. The bell tolled for me. Sorry, death, but it was the eve of my 22nd birthday. And sorry, Hemingway, to answer your question that way. Okay. Well, I have a new notebook, so I'll just read the three quick parts from it. Actually, I'll just read maybe two. She asked her teacher, if there are 4 directions, why do we have only 2 feet? Okay, it's good we have something funny here. So, have you ever thought that stones could get Alzheimer's? Do you think they can get Alzheimer's? Okay, I'll tell you how. Stones of house after the explosion get Alzheimer's. Some forget they were in a wall in a bedroom or a kitchen or a bathroom. Some in a ceiling. Some forget they sat behind photo frames for years. A few stones forget they were stones, those hit by the bomb. 2 last poems. Younger than war. Tanks roll through dust, through eggplant fields. Beds unmade, lightning in the sky. Brother jumps to window to watch warplanes flying through clouds of smoke after airstrikes. Warplanes that look like eagles, searching for a tree branch to perch on, catch a breath. But these metal eagles are catching souls in a blood-bone soup bowl. No need for the radio. We are the news. Ants' ears hurt with each bullet fired from wrathful machine guns. And soldiers advance, burn books. Some smoke rolled sheets of yesterday's newspaper, just like they did when they were kids. Our kids hide in the basement, backs against concrete pillars, heads between knees, parents silent, humid down there, and heat of burning bombs adds to the slow death of survival. In September 2000, and after I had bought bread for dinner, I saw a helicopter firing a rocket into a tower as far from me as my frightful cries when I heard concrete and glass fall from high. Loaves of bread went stale. I was still 7 at the time. I was decades younger than war, a few years older than bombs. Thank you. This is the last poem, and I'm happy that it got published in the New York Review of Books 2 weeks ago. I'm happy to end with it. And I mean, it could be a Gazan, it could be someone from Ukraine, someone in Syria, and any other parts of the world where there is violence. What a Gazan should do during an Israeli airstrike: turn off the lights in every room, sit in the inner hallway of the house, away from the windows, stay away from the stove, stop thinking about making black tea, have a bottle of water nearby, big enough to cool down children's fear. Get a child's kindergarten backpack and stuff tiny toys and whatever amount of money there is, and the ID cards and photos of late grandparents, aunts or uncles. And the grandparents' wedding invitation that's been kept for a long time. And if you are a farmer, you should put some strawberry seeds in one pocket and some soil from the balcony flower pot in the other, and hold on tight to whatever number there was on the cake from the last birthday. Thank you.
I'm just going to take a moment. Well, thank you, Mosab. It's such powerful work, and I think for me, having some familiarity with these poems, having read them on the page, it's such a gift to hear you embody them and speak them, here today. It's an incredible gift. I'm very grateful. It's also been a gift to get to know you a little bit over the last 2 days here in Salem. And I think one of the other gifts is, to be moving around the city with you. It helps me to see this space, this city, this community, this country through different eyes. I mean, I'm seeing it a little bit through your eyes, which is a very different perspective. And the things that we take for granted, like water and electricity, and going to bed at night in relative quiet is really something. And I guess the first question I wanted to ask you was, here we are at this festival, and there's an abundance of poets and literature and books, and you're a librarian in addition to being a poet, and I wondered if you could sort of talk about what books mean and the value of books for people in Gaza, where it's much harder to obtain them and share them and have them. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Robbie, for the question. Well, I mean, I won't call myself a professional librarian. I wasn't trained as a librarian, but I was made to create a library in Gaza because Gaza has been under siege since 2007, and there are not a lot of resources in Gaza, and also the political rift between the two main parties in Palestine, unfortunately, has been badly affecting people's lives in different aspects. So the first horrible scene I saw in my life, apart from seeing a helicopter that I mentioned firing a rocket into a building just a few feet from me, was when I visited my university's administrative building in 2014 after Israel targeted it. One of the first scenes to strike me was the scene of many books, including that one book, the Norton Anthology of American Literature, buried under the rubble after the airstrike. And I thought that books need to be protected. And I think one way of protecting books is getting more books from outside, because this book could be burned, could be ruined by shrapnel. So books for me, as a writer, are windows into the outside world, where people in Gaza have been unable to leave Gaza for many years. I have friends, and I told Richard, I have friends who are 40 years old and they have never left Gaza ever. So books could be a way for people to travel outside of their place. And many people, including me, I mean, as a child, I thought that the world could be 5 times or 10 times bigger than Gaza, right? Because I've never been outside Gaza, and I thought Gaza is very big. But Gaza, in reality, is only 141 square miles. And when I left Gaza, and it took me about 5 hours just to move between Boston and Syracuse. So, and even sometimes from Syracuse to New York City, just within the same state, it took me 5 hours. And people can never in Gaza imagine the things that I'm talking about. So part of the siege and occupation is not only occupying the land, but also occupying our imagination in Gaza. And I thought creating a library where books are kept and where a place that would make it safe for people to come and read and borrow would be a very important act of resistance to challenge the siege, the occupation. So that's what books are for me. It's a way of protecting literature and also to let people in Gaza travel when they learn about other parts of the world and how big it is.
That's wonderful. And you may not be a professional librarian, but you have the mind of a librarian. In so many of your poems, there are lists that are cataloging things, and I see you sort of in the chaos of the violence, sort of trying to create some order. The beautiful sounds of your mother's voice and the birds, and then separating them out from the shrapnel and the bombs falling. It's you have that mindset, and
well, I'll consider getting a degree in library science. I'll tell them I have a book of poems and it has some listing. So
that's your qualification. That's wonderful. So last night we were at another headliner reading, and Jennifer John was asking the poets there. She had a question for them. She said, "Who are you writing to?" And you leaned over and you said, "Can you ask me that question?" So I want to ask you that I want to ask you that question, but I want to make it a little bit bigger and more complicated, because you're a Palestinian poet writing in English, and I know you also write in Arabic some.
Yeah.
So when you were writing so the two parts of the question: who are you writing to in English, and is that different from who you are writing to in Arabic? And what is the relationship between those two things?
Well, thank you for exposing that. I mean, at least I'm happy people are laughing after the things that I mentioned, because my book is full of bombs and it's dangerous, So the reason why I told you to ask me that question was because I think another way of maybe a better question would be, or maybe a better answer for me is not answering to whom you are writing. Mm-hmm. I think it's more important for me is about whom I'm writing. Mm-hmm. So I'm not interested, of course it's important to keep in mind the audience, but for me, for someone who's coming from Gaza and who has been under attacks and who's lost 3 friends, etc., it's more important for me that I'm writing about people who are not heard. So documenting and writing and amplifying the voices of the voiceless, is more important to me than who I'm writing to. So that was maybe one of the reasons why I asked you, ask me that question, because I have a different answer to it that maybe other poets might not have that in mind, because they are interested in writing to a specific audience, to a girlfriend or a wife. But in Gaza, it's maybe different, because it's about who I'm writing about. Mm-hmm. So about the family, the parents and their 4 children. Mm-hmm. If no one told the story of that family, then it's like it never happened. Mm-hmm. You see? So without Homer telling us the story of the Athenians, and no one would know what happened, But I write in both languages, in Arabic and in English, and I'm blessed to be able to use both languages to express my feelings and my emotions and my thoughts. But generally, I would say, when I write in English, because English is the language of imperialism, the language of the military, the language of control, I'm thinking about telling people who speak this language about what they are doing to us in their language. Mm-hmm. So here, specifically, I would talk about the Balfour Declaration, which gave the Jews in the world the land of Palestine because they are Jews. So it was written in English. And I need to tell the people the aftermath of that declaration and promise, because I need the people to not only think of politics, but also think of us as humans, right? And I need people to also not consider people in Gaza as numbers, because on the TV screen, 5 people were killed. I mean, in Ukraine and Syria and Libya and other parts of the world, 5 people were killed, 5 buildings were destroyed, 900 were wounded. Yes, but it's not about numbers. We are not numbers, and you are not numbers. No one is a number. However, when I write in Arabic, I usually think of universal matters. It's not about Mosab, who is a Palestinian from Gaza, but in Arabic it's Mosab, who is a human being in a big, big world. You know, so talking about religion, about existence, why we are here. What if I was born in a different world? Maybe, what if I was not born at all? But in Gaza, I'm talking about what's happening now. You know, so that's, and one time I tried, so I wrote a poem about mirror in English, in Arabic, sorry, first. And it was about the mirror watching me, and the mirror was, I mean, but even to the paper that the poems are written on. One time, I think I wrote something about this, that one time I woke up in the middle of the night and I saw some smoke seeping through the drawer. And then I opened the drawer and I found the sheet of paper was starting to burn, and guess what the reason was? The last word in the poem on that paper was the word bomb, and there was no full stop after the word bomb. So it was starting to explode.
Wow.
So poetry is dangerous,
yes,
metaphorically and in the real world. And poetry helps me understand myself, and helps me, relieve some of the pain in me. And sometimes when I write poems, I get to discover some of the fears that I have, and some of the nightmares that are coming to me in my sleep. So I think by way of writing about these things, I face them instead of them facing me in my dream. So it helps me continue in as healthy way as ever.
Thank you. I think we have a final announcement or two to close us out.
Thank you so much.
Yes. I hate to stop us, but there's another event in this room. Robbie, when you sat down, you used the word powerful, and I think that's exactly right. Can we please get one more round of applause? Thank you. Thank you so much, Mosab and Robbie, and thank you, everyone. The book signing is actually going to be down by Wicked Good Books, which is down Essex Street. We'll take our poet right now and head down that way, so I hope you'll follow us. It's about halfway down the pedestrian mall there. And thank you again, and hope to see you at the rest of the festival. We've got our last headline event at 3:15 in the PBD in the East India Marine Hall up there. So thanks, everyone.